Welcome, Queen. There was a time I would meet guys and think they've got potential. And often when we do this, we can find ourselves disappointed when the relationships don't work. Can you relate to meeting a guy or being attracted to a guy only to find out he wasn't who you truly desired? If so, today's video is for you because I'm going to be sharing a possible reason why and how to minimize ever wanting the wrong guy again. So, when we meet people, we tend to go off of how we feel. And so, I want you to think about your feelings because depending on if you are having a so-called good day or a rough day, so-called rough day, you are going to be in a different space. And a stranger, the same stranger, could come approach you at both times. And typically, they're going to get a different response, even though they may be asking or trying to communicate with you about the same issue or topic because of how you feel, because of the space and state that you are in. And that is why emotions, our feelings, are not good indicators when it comes to making these types of decisions about our lives. And yet, they tend to lead us down the wrong path. Just think about this as well. When you go into the store and you see an item that's new, you've never seen it before, it can look amazing. And it may only be $10 or $20. And still, you may find yourself evaluating should you buy it. And yet, when it comes to getting to know different guys that approach us who say that they are interested in us, we don't spend that same level of investigation before we take on feelings about them and who they are. So, what I'm sharing with you here is that we need to take time to evaluate our feelings and hold off on our feelings because our feelings can mislead us and misguide us. So, the question for you is, are you going into the dating space and stage with high expectations, or are you going into the dating space and stage with open minded evaluation? Because those are two different ways to approach dating. One leads you down the road of already having ideas and thoughts about how the situation is going to go, and the other leads you to go where the evidence shows you, meaning that you are open to evaluate and see this man for who he is. When you go in with the first approach, you can find yourself easily disappointed and unnecessarily frustrated and brokenhearted. Versus when you go in with the second approach, you can find yourself better off and able to bounce back when things don't work out as you intended because you didn't have any preconceived or preset ideas of what the end was going to be or be like. Think about that today. Evaluate that because it truly does matter and it does make a difference. And last month, this is another thing that gets us caught up as ladies because just last month I was watching an episode of Anthony O'Neill, and there was this clip of a young lady sharing her truth about how she feels about cheap men. Here's what I want you to know, ladies. If you were taught or if you believe that dating is for a guy to impress you, that's not your fault. But I'm going to challenge that belief system today because a cheap man, a calculating man, a penny pinching man, whatever thoughts or ideas you have on spending, that's relative according to what you believe. So, what I'm saying here is you may perceive something to be cheap or a person to be cheap, and someone else could totally disagree with you. So, I'm not going to debate that here. What I am going to share with you is this, that any man who can spend X amount of dollars on you and that impresses you to be in a relationship with him, well, that man just bought you. And too often, men are able to buy women and they don't recognize they are being bought because they are being fooled and manipulated by that man's representative and what he is showing them he has the ability to do. So please understand, just because a man is willing to spend on you does not mean that he really cares for you and is the best fit for you. And also understand that no one walks around 100% of the time focused on trying to impress someone. They just don't. So if you have that expectation in dating, please understand that to do so is to have an unrealistic and unsustainable expectation for the dating process. Because when you're talking about building a life and sharing a life with someone, who is thinking, who is focused on trying to impress you every day of their life? You see, that's why I say it's a mindset and it needs to be broken. Because, like I said, it can lead you to being attracted to a man who is buying you. And if he can buy you, well, you've just diminished your value in his eyes and you don't even recognize it. So, again, evaluate. Are you showing up in the dating process as an individual, as a woman who can be bought? I know that may be tough to hear, but consider that and consider the type of men that you are attracting and that are attracted to you. Are they the type of men who feel or believe that they can buy you? Because if they are, then you may want to consider whether or not there are some traits, some characteristics, things you may be saying or doing that is giving them that impression. Now, I'm not saying that there are, but it's a possibility because we know some guys are just arrogant and they believe they can have whatever they want if they name their price. But I share that with you as well because I want you to know that if you have that expectation, if you were raised to believe that a man should impress you in dating, that he should wine and dine you in dating, then if he's not meeting that standard according to your belief system, you could find yourself walking around thinking that there are no good men, that all men are trifling or all men are dogs, and that's not necessarily the truth. In fact, it's not true. We know that that's not true. But if you have that belief system, your belief system can cause you to believe that it is true, when the issue is the person looking at you in the mirror. And the same thing, well, before I say that, let me say this as a sidebar. I know some women have an issue with men who are only willing to spend so much on a date or in the dating process. But I want you to consider this. A wise man counts the cost. If you don't count the cost, you won't know the cost. If you don't count the cost, you won't know the cost. And I know we've all been at the store and we've saw someone, or maybe we were next in line and there was somebody in front of us who didn't count the cost. And they found themselves at the register trying to figure out what they were going to put back. Why? Because they didn't count the cost. So wisdom and discernment counts the cost. That's being a wise steward with your resources and understand your time, not just money, is a resource. So count the cost. Appreciate a man who counts the cost. Because if you count the cost on the front end, it can save you time and frustration on the back end. And the last thing I'm going to say on that is this. There are some people who did not count the cost. And that's why their financial situation is a mess today. So again, I want you to consider how you perceive a man who counts the cost. Because if you perceive him as a man that you don't want, then you will attract men who, more likely than not, you don't really want. It may look like you want them because you'll be buying into their representative. But once the smoke clears, you'll realize they wasn't who you really wanted. So again, think about counting the cost a little bit differently today. If you had the former mindset, I should say. And the same thing can be said with our type. We can buy into looks. And there's nothing wrong with having a type. But consider if your type is working out. Consider if, because he looks how you want him to look, that you are going into this process of getting to know him as you date him with high expectations versus an open mind. See, again, high expectations can lead you to building before you ever get to know him. An open mind can lead you to evaluating him based off of what he shows you about himself. And it positions you and equips you to evaluate whether or not who he is, what he's about, what he needs, wants, and desires is in alignment with what you want, need, and desire. Is who he is as a person in alignment with your life and your values? It matters. Because if you're going to build a life with someone, you have to be able to come to the table and agree. Everything you may not agree on, but foundational principles on how you two are going to live and share and build a life, there needs to be alignment there. Else you're going to end up with chaos, dysfunction, and a whole lot of arguing, fussing, and fighting. Eventually, it's going to fall apart because you two are not aligned. It's like oil and water. You don't mix. So really and truly think about how you are showing up, how you are navigating these dating streets. Yes, I know it may be challenging, but it is possible to do so without feeling stress and frustration. If you like to work with me one-on-one, you can work with me one-on-one, and we can customize a game plan for you. We can navigate and determine where you are and what's best for you and your situation. Even when it comes to having conversations, we can navigate where you are stuck, where you are having issues, and where you would like to see changes. Go into the description and you will see the link there for you to schedule a call. You can book a call at a time that is best fit for you. So, the solution. I'm sure you're like, well, tell us the solution. So here's the solution. Shift your mindset from high expectations to open-minded evaluation. Shift your mindset from high expectations to open-minded evaluation. This means that you approach the dating process with objectivity. And you recognize that a good man is not necessarily a kingdom man, because you can meet a good man who's not kingdom minded. Those are two different types of men. So you also must consider, what type of man do you truly want? Don't just say, oh yes, I want a kingdom man, but you're not living life the king's way. Evaluate you. Evaluate your life and your choices. And I'm going to borrow a line from Jerry Flowers, but I'm going to put it in the form of a question. Are you having sexual intimacy before you gather personal discovery? Are you having sexual intimacy before you gather personal discovery? Because if you are doing that and you are expecting kingdom results, that's not going to cut it. Because that is a worldly way to go about approaching relationships. And the king never said that he was going to co-sign and stamp the world's way, the world's mindset, and the world's type of relationships. He's not going to change. He's not going to shift. So again, consider, do you really want a kingdom-minded man? Because it's easy to say you want a kingdom-minded man. But then when you are approached by a kingdom-minded man, you can't see it because you're sold on the world's way. That's why I use the reference of counting the cost. You see, the world may not count the cost, but somebody who's focused on doing and living life kingdom, they're going to count the cost because they're going to understand the value in counting the cost. So understand, there's nothing wrong with doing it the world's way if that's your standard. But understand that if you meet a man who wants to do it the king's way, that's a different standard. And it doesn't make him a bad man. It just means he's not the man that you are looking for. So, again, know what you're looking for. And also understand that in the event that you go about doing relationships the world's way, if you voluntarily get involved with this man in a physical way, then he didn't do anything that you didn't allow. And if you don't see that it is causing you some unnecessary heartache and heartbreak in the dating phase and the dating process, you will keep repeating that decision and not seeing the impact that it's having on your life. So again, consider, are you navigating the dating process looking at the man and seeing the faults of the man, but not seeing how you may have contributed to the situation at hand? Because all men are not dogs, all men are not trifling, all men are not no good. So I challenge you today to recognize that when you focus on the wrong things in dating, you get painful results from your dating. As always, I'm Coach Sam telling you that 24 hours doesn't seem long, but in 24 hours you could change your life. So go ahead and do something life-changing now.